Welcome to A Doctor's Journey, Navigating Life and Medicine with Coaching and Healthcare Innovation. And I'm your host, Miguel Villagra. I'm a certified physician, life coach, and positive intelligence coach. And I'm a digital health expert and advisor of a few healthcare startups. And I'm very excited for guys to be here again on another episode. And today, we have an amazing guest that we're going to talk about important topics around healthcare innovation, digital health, artificial intelligence, and population health. Her name is Dr. Enitza George. She's an associate professor and chair of family and community medicine and chief of population health officer at Sunny Downstate Medical Center. And she also have an amazing background in software engineering, and she has an area of expertise in artificial intelligence. I met Enitza as part of the Doximity Fellowship in Digital Health, and I'm very excited to have her here and have a nice conversation about these topics. So, Enitza, welcome to the show.
Thank you. What an incredible privilege to have this space. First of all, congratulations on creating this space, a very needed space, not only for physicians, but anybody in healthcare that really wants to learn more about what digital health is doing especially for our communities in equity and all of this. But thank you for inviting.
Fantastic. In A Doctor's Journey, it's all about setting goals and reach your destination while enjoying the journey. And always the first questions that I ask my guests is to tell me a little bit about your journey, how you get to where you are and where you're coming from.
I am native Panamanian, although I have a background coming from Ethiopia, Jamaica. I'm a second generation Panamanian. And I did my medical training in Panama. And then I came to the United States, to New York, and studied downstate. That's where I did family medicine. And then I stayed on as medical director of one of the clinics here. I got then a calling, literally, in 2000 when the Panama Canal was going back to Panamanian administration. They needed a physician that would literally bridge the American system of a federal plan for the retirees of the Panama Canal with the Panamanian system of medicine. Because I trained in Panama and had a Panamanian license, and I trained in New York and I got the incredible and unusual privilege of bridging those two, literally like Panama being the bridge, literally
Mhm.
bridging those two scientific and medical cultures as a science and also as an art. And I did that for a number of years. Then I had my own practice. I was CEO of a practice. One of the most prideful things for me to say is that I also worked with Nike for developing running for women in Latin America, a whole movement that started with two people, who today is my best friend. She's the marketing expert at Nike for Panama. People were telling us, no way, women don't run. It's not happening. We developed a whole movement that really changed the nation in Panama with running when women, and of course it impacted men. And then at some point I decided, you know what, I'm interested in doing some more things. And I went ahead and I myself ran marathons in all 7 continents, representing Nike as a runner and as a doctor, as an ambassador for the brand, which gave me a very unique commercial way of looking at things and the innovation. And then those two jobs, being medical director of the federal plan and having my own business and working with Nike, really made me think about business intelligence. And that's how I did a master's in business. And then I became a little bit interested in artificial intelligence. I went ahead and did a master's in software engineering. And then I got more interested in AI and did a master's in artificial intelligence. In any event, I decided to come back to the United States, first to Wisconsin, then to Massachusetts, and now I'm here in the university, getting what I think is an incredible privilege to not only practice medicine, but teach medicine and look forward to the future of bringing students and residents into digital health. And I'm hoping that not hoping, actually, I'm working towards using my knowledge in medicine, my knowledge in marketing, my knowledge in branding, my knowledge in digital health to help downstate and the Brooklyn community into the future. And that's like very aspirational and it's a huge undertaking. I work with a fantastic team of people that are passionate about the community. And I'll leave it at that because it's just overwhelming to even think about how blessed I am to be in this space.
What a beautiful journey and so much to unpack, really, for everything. It's amazing all the different pivots that you have through your career. And I do coaching for physicians that are interested in career transition, and some of which are interested in digital health and particularly telemedicine. And one of the things that I see a lot and I hear a lot from physicians is how can I get started, right? That's the first thing. But number two, and it's interesting when your experience with the Nike, the way you receive a no, that was your first response. That ain't gonna happen. A woman's done wrong, right? And I feel that healthcare innovation is rooted into challenging the status quo and not
Oh,
take
yes.
no for an answer. But as physicians, Rona, we're so rooted into our physician personality, and it's hard for us to change the status or even challenge the status quo, right? So that's why we need more people with this mindset like the one you have. But I'm going to start asking you a question. How do you handle the no when you hear no as a response? Tell me.
Listen, I don't know if this is just an interview or if you were literally sent by God to ask me these questions to reflect on my journey, but also to empower myself. Listen, I don't know how to take no for an answer. I just don't know how to. I get passionate about something and I evaluate if it's something that is really worth my involvement. And that is categorical. It's either yes or no. If it's no, I disengage. But if it is yes, I just don't know how to let it go. And so, for instance, what happened and the reason why Nike approached me was because I had started running just as a means of being healthy. And in the midst of training for a marathon, I discovered I was pregnant. And it was terrifying at the time. And I found that as I continued running, I was feeling so much stronger. And I did my first marathon, that is 42 kilometers. I was 6 months pregnant, being the first woman in Panama. And I'm not sure how many people may have done it already again, but at that point, and Nike was watching, they were observing my training, my passion, and they approached me after that. And so I was able to use my personal experience to infuse this energy into women. That led me then into other things, into Nike saying, listen, we want you to help us with the brand. We had collaborations with Gatorade, with Tiffany, with big brands, and just absorbing all of these things. Later on in life, I would have many no's. And even to this day, there are many times I still hear no every single day. In fact, to be honest, Miguel, I was 18 years old and being in ending high school, graduating as a senior, and one of my beloved professors said, "You a doctor? You're never going to be a doctor." And, and and I'm 57 now. That's 40, almost 40 years ago. I just don't know how to stop when I'm passionate about something. And when I think that in integrity, what I'm doing is right. And most importantly, when I think that there is an impact to other people. I am not religious, but I'm very spiritual. And I believe that those no's are part of the journey to
Mhm.
test you. Are you going to do your best and have an impact? I believe people are looking at you, Miguel, and people are looking at me for energy, for finding, did somebody just stop when they heard no, or did they push through? And that is also part of our responsibility to make
Mhm.
sure that the people that we have that are looking will be infused with that energy and determination to achieve their own goals that have nothing to do with you, but it's part of the journey. Your journey is part of other person's journey as well.
Totally. So we're all connected,
We
absolutely.
are.
And I always say that we always need to keep on in check our mindset or psychology. We also need to keep in check your heart set, right? Or emotionality. At the
Yes.
same time, your your physiology, but more important, oftentimes we ignore our spirituality, right? And that's very important because when you're serving a higher purpose, right? When you're making not only the right thing because it's the right thing to do, morally speaking in general, but specifically it make the world better. So now I will say though that as we grow, as we change, it's that a growth mindset, right? You're ready to nimble, ready to pivot. But oftentimes, sometimes when you are on those moments where you feel that things are not working out for you, and I hear that a lot about some of my coaching clients, right? They're about to give up. And what advice
Yes.
would you give them? Those circumstances because change is hard.
Oh,
Absolutely. It's
yeah.
not easy. Otherwise, everybody will be doing it.
Absolutely. I think First of all, you stop, right? You stop and you check on yourself. Okay, so how am I doing? How am I feeling? Have I lost luster? Have I lost my internal shine? Am I not smiling anymore? Am I being harsh on people, therefore showing signs of burnout? You've got to stop. And ideally, you will do that regularly, intentionally. And that is, for me, it's Saturday mornings. I stop, I check. How did it go? What am I looking at? How am I looking? How did I get to that conclusion? Like, where did I pick up that thought? So I do that. I exercise regularly. I go to the gym. But I would say the first thing you need to do is stop, especially develop that self awareness. Self awareness is not the same as, of course, being self conscious, which is a negative thing. But self awareness is I know my triggers. I know what things make me go into frustration mode. It takes time, though. It didn't happen when I was 18, right? When I was 18, and this professor said, "Oh, you'll never be a doctor." I used that negativity as fuel. So when I was in medical school and there were times when things got really rough, I said, "Oh, no, wait, I'm not going to make that professor be right." So I used that negative energy to propel me. These days, I don't have to do that anymore because I don't even spend time thinking about the naysayers, except when I think it may be something that I need to learn from it. For instance, this professor that did that, that said that, he later came around and actually said, "I'm sorry. I'm so proud every time I see what you've become." But what I have taken from that is that, you know what? He said that because I was not at the time showing respect for my own potential. So rather than, "Oh, he is so terrible," I used that to say, okay, so what about me made him say that? Maybe I wasn't making all this effort. And so he thought, yeah, she doesn't have the qualities. But it's unreasonable to expect an 18-year-old to have the qualities of a full blown made physician. But I know this now. So I am able to better judge his conversation and say, okay, so now have I become that physician full blown that demonstrates the quality of a good physician? I like to believe I do. And so I examine myself. So the first thing is you stop, you're self aware, you examine yourself, and then you examine the journey. So what is ahead? Right? Maybe I think I need to slow down. I thought I was going to be at such point at this moment, but apparently it's going to take a little longer. And then I need to be patient with myself. That is where I personally struggle because I am very tough on myself. I'm very ambitious. But I've learned to say, you know what? I thought this would take 3 days. It's day 2 3/4. I need to stop. And maybe this is going to take 10 days, not three. That's my challenge, but I've been able to do that. The fourth thing would be outside of yourself, look for people like you, like a coach. I have a coach and to talk to them. And they're able to look from the outside and say, this is your contribution to this. This is unrealistic, or this is the expectation. Usually it's good to get a coach that has walked that same path or similar. It's difficult to get a coach, or for me anyway, to use a coach that may not have achieved things that they wanted to achieve, because to achieve anything, you have to go through some rough patches and then be able to just admit sometimes that you made a mistake and this is not the journey that you wanted. And if you need to, in humility, get on a parallel path, there's nothing wrong with doing that because all of it you take to with you to whatever it is that you think now is the better path. So you never start from zero. You always start from a position of, I learned this and I can use that lesson to something else. Think about all the medications or the different things that we have developed that came from something else we were trying to solve. And in that journey, you found really a different path, but something that was a lot more valuable.
Absolutely. One of the things you just remind me in positive intelligence, which is one of the framework we have, we often talk about the sage perspective, and that is that how can you turn any challenge or struggle into a gift or opportunity? And we're presented with two choices, right? We either transform that as a source of inspiration, we actually use it as a beacon of change for good for ourselves, or if this is something that you cannot translate into something good, you just let it go and move on. And that's the
Yes.
part that sometimes is hard, right? It's hard to
Yes.
let go. And that's oftentimes something that we need to practice more. Sometimes it's
You need
about
to check your
practicing.
ego. Yes, you
Hmm.
need to check your ego because you can say, "Oh, I'm not gonna stop this because it's gonna look bad on who?" It could be look worse so much time later when you look back and say, "Oh my god, I lost so much time."
Absolutely. Now, you give me the perfect segue though, because the reality is that burnout is a true phenomenon in America, unfortunately, in healthcare worker, physicians included. And I started as a burnout coach, actually, on my career as a professional coach. And I am one of the believers, and the more I see and do research and practice telemedicine and work with digital health companies, that through healthcare innovation is how we can truly need to pursue the change or the upgrade that our healthcare system needs. And I want to
Yes.
hear your thoughts about where do you see the use of technology, such as artificial intelligence, blending or shaping even the future of our healthcare system. If you can give me also a few examples of how you foresee this change happening.
I would say 3 things always: people, programs, and then systems, right? Processes. So, in terms of people, we like to think that things should be patient centered. We need to include the patient in the design of more of these artificial intelligence and digital projects because it's supposed to be for them. And a lot of times we develop solutions, we don't answer questions. So, to answer questions, we need to ask a question, right? So, what do you need? What's going on with you? What is a pain point for you? What do you need? And then developers and companies would go ahead and develop these answers to the question or the problem specific, not create a solution and then look for who has a problem that it could create. And so it could solve. So that is one issue. But another thing that I see as an incredible potential for going forward with artificial intelligence in terms of people is the doctors themselves. So I in one of the many courses that I've taken, certification I did with MIT, this certification, they were looking at the doctor of the future getting up, being scanned, the doctor being scanned, and seeing how they're feeling and how they're doing, and establishing a program for the doctor. So their nutrition, for their mental health, and then for the list of patients they can approach. So as there is the transference and the co-transference of the relationship between doctors and patients. So if that on a specific day you get up and your AI says that you really don't want to see patients of this profile today, that would reduce your burnout. And so the AI would pair the patient or you and your current state of mind with the type of patients that might be a good idea for you to see today. And if today you seem to be a little sad and not as high in energy, maybe it's not a good day for you to see that very difficult patient that is going to burn you out even more. And maybe you're going to have a bad interaction with that patient, leaving the patient more frustrated and therefore with more possibility of having a bad outcome. The AI should also help you in that same regard to learn how to manage better that kind of patient. So sometimes you don't realize how you're projecting yourself. And the AI could tell you, look, every time you see this particular patient, you seem to be aggressive towards that patient, or let's examine some ways of better approaching these types of patients if you want. That is in terms of people. Of course, you don't practice in a silo by yourself. So you practice with a secretary, with MAs, with nurses, and all kinds of APs, advanced professional practice providers. The AI will also help to make that network flow better, communications flow. That is in terms of people. In terms of programs, the possibilities are immense, from remote monitoring, which is one of my passions, to digital technologies that have to do with virtual realities and spaces. And one of the things that I'm excited about is quantum physics and quantum computing and the possibility of nanotechnology. And for instance, people that have a disability being able to have nanotechnology that would communicate for them so that you can know this person may not be able to speak, but has a brain and has feelings. And so being able to understand better how to care for this patient will bring us into a digital age where technology would help us have a more humane and compassionate practice.
I love it. So, no, and you give me a good sense of what to expect about the future. Now, I do know you are very passionate about the specific topic of gamification, right? Gamification in medicine. And it's interesting that I saw you talking about this topic before, and even for me, it was an eye opening of something that a lot of physicians have no clue that even exists, right? And now I even have friends that are working companies to use VR to treat autism, for instance, to give you an example. That is a
Yes.
promising niche and area of development. And I'm so excited. The more I see it, the more opportunities I can see. I think there are applications for elderly patients with Alzheimer as well. So if you want to give me a rundown 101 of gamification in medicine, I know it's a long topic, but at least to share with the audience some concept and examples of it.
Yes, unfortunately, diabetes type 3, right? Dementia. We know today that the brain does not stop growing and making connections just because time goes by, but rather that there is neuroplasticity. And so there are some studies that show that through gamification, you can help that elderly person improve on their memory. You can help them with depression, with feeling a new sense of being useful, or of just the fact that the brain will make new connections is already a game winner, a changer, right? And so through gamification of healthcare, there have been very valid studies that show that we can help the senior population. A lot of parents, of course, worry that by using games, the kids would become addicted. That's a very complex thing to talk about. There's some studies, most of which are not that great to say that it's bad to use the games. But the truth is that the way that digital health and digital world in general is moving towards, we're going to see much more of this in everything. Well, from banking to buying a car, you have an ability to go on a computer, look at the cars, have video that show you every angle and have a sense of driving the car and not even leaving your home and going to the car dealer and you have the car delivered to your home. This is a reality today, right? Women that are pregnant and you want to teach them how to breastfeed, you can use games, video games with headsets and have all that opportunity of how to hold this baby. You can use gamification to teach how to do procedures. So now you don't have to make medical mistakes with real people, but you can actually start learning the techniques by using virtual realities or mixed realities. So there is a little bit of the technology, but there's also the neuroplasticity of knowing how to properly hold the instruments. You teach anatomy through gaming. The possibilities are simply mind-boggling, and then you start wondering, okay, so how much of this is just gonna be mainstream? But that's where we start having the inequalities. If you ask me, my concern is comes with the inequalities. So a lot of times we say, oh, so artificial intelligence and digital health is going to bridge the gap and make it equal to all. And that is absolutely not true. Because what we have found in the studies that we've done is that the people that have the more will get more, even more. And sometimes the people that don't have enough may get even less. And so if I have all the finances aligned, then I can buy the best apps and I can buy the best technology, even if I don't even need it. But if I don't have the resources and I don't have the know-how to get a grant for my university, then I simply will not have the technology. And so therefore, it just perpetuates the inequality. Those are the things that concern me, not the technology itself. I think that we have good engineers that are working on answering on we have good people asking the right questions, and we have good engineers developing the answers and the solutions. But there is this gap of ethics and of concern as to how we make this gap close and not bridge it and not widened. And that's the space that I like to work in.
Yeah, no, I think that you raise awareness on this is a very important topic, and I can break it down in two pieces. Actually, I can break it down through the access of the customers, the patient, but even I can give you the argument about access to the healthcare providers that are treating those patients because
Correct.
oftentimes, like I still do hospital medicine and I work in a very small community hospital. And oftentimes, when we try to bring and it's interesting going back to bridges, right? I try to bridge some of the things I know with some of the companies I work into this small environment. And of course, that there is a huge gap. You see
Correct.
them in these huge centers, but small community hospitals is harder to introduce this type of change in
Yes.
technology.
Yes, because also there is a resistance to change. And so it's easy for me, quote unquote, easy. It could technically be easy for me to just get a job, let's just say somewhere like San Francisco, where it's Silicon Valley and the mindset is there. The mindset is there. And the growth opportunity for me would probably be a lot more, quote unquote, being in the room with people that think exactly the same way. But that only perpetuates that bridge. Rather, I choose to be in a community like Brooklyn where there's sincere disparities, but I feel inspired and committed to bring up in a university of all places people that have the intelligence and the potential and therefore inspire them into that change. It is not an easy thing to do. It's literally going against the grain, but I think it's worth it. It's worth it because I'm not gonna live forever, but it would be nice to feel that in the time that I was here, I left something, and that something was impactful to people's lives.
Yeah, that's beautiful said. And you give me the perfect segue to talk a little bit about population health in general, but specifically disparities in healthcare and minorities, so-called minorities, quote minorities. And
Quote unquote, yeah.
I'm gonna start with the first. I just finished a fellowship with the National Hispanic Medical Association, and we are
Oh,
working on on a proposal for a bill that can improve the workforce of Latino Latinas in healthcare, specifically physicians. We want more physicians getting into medicine.
yes,
And one of the things and the slogan that we came up with, we are 6% of physicians in the workforce in United States among the million or so of physicians that identify as Latino Latina, and we have a population at least that we know of 22% or more of Latino Latinas. So you see
yes,
a huge gap. And then it comes to this idea is not only as access of care, but access of care with people that is cultural competent to care for those people.
correct.
And the more you unpack the problem, the more you see the way I want to see it. I want to be optimistic as you are. Like I want to see opportunities, and I see how many opportunities to improve the health of these patients. But that's one point that I want to make, and I want your thoughts on it. But the second point I want to make, one of them I'm passionate about is my Latino Latina health. I work with companies that focus on this community, or I am the one taking care of them, right? And one of them is actually a program for stroke survivors. And let me tell you, one of the main struggles we have is that sometimes patients don't have access to technology. They don't have a
Correct.
camera on their phone to even do the video conference. And the nice about to be in a small startups is you can pivot rapidly. We shift from instead of saying we're not going to take care of them, we're going to go to a phone call model with a short video afterwards for the physical exam. So that's what I love about healthcare. As small companies, you have more leverage on what you can do, and you pivot rapidly instead of being in a very large healthcare system, right, with so much
Yes.
regulation. But the point is, two things is access of care, access of technology, and all these drivers, right, that affects how we can care for our communities. So I want to, this is a huge topic, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
So there are two things that you said that are crucial. The number one is the fact that, and somebody would ask, who cares if it's a black doctor treating a black patient or a Latino doctor treating a Latino patient? It matters immensely. There's studies that show that when you provide culturally appropriate and sensitive treatments, the outcome is better. In other words, when Black patients are treated by Black doctors, Latino patients are treated by Latino doctors, and these doctors understand the culture deeply because they have lived it. then the outcome for the patient is better. It's not because of racism or any of that. Is because a lot goes into culture that goes beyond just speaking the language. So if I have a, let's just say, a Mexican or a Nicaraguan patient, or I have a West Indian patient, it would be almost ridiculous for me to tell them that the best diet for them is the Mediterranean diet. Even though in all the literature and for even my boards, I have to answer that the Mediterranean diet or the DASH diet is fantastic. But when I speak to my West Indian patient or to my Central American patient, I need to be talking about roti. I need to be talking about jerk chicken and jerk fish. And I need to be talking about empanadas. And I need to be talking about corn. And it's a whole different way. I need to talk to them about how what they eat, how much they eat, what are I need to understand the culture in order to be sensitive. And it is my responsibility as a doctor, no matter if I am treating a Latino patient, a Black patient, a Hispanic, an Asian patient, or African patient, or European. It is my responsibility as a provider, as a doctor, as a physician, as the person that cares for this patient to be culturally sensitive and prepared to treat the patient. And if I don't have the knowledge, it is my responsibility to ensure that I school myself. So therefore, if I already have that, it's going to be easier for me to provide this for my patient. If I don't have it, it's still my responsibility to figure it out. But it comes natural and easier if I am from the same culture or have the experience of the culture. That's one. On the other hand, is the other question that you talked about pivoting, and you are absolutely right. When I was CEO of my own company, I had the nurse and the MA and the secretary. I did lifestyle medicine. So I had in our group, we physically had two trainers. It is easy to pivot. It is easy to switch or you're nimble. When you work with a large corporation, for instance, Nike, I didn't only have to think about what I thought was good, but there's a branding and a respect for that brand and a respect for that vision. And this is multinational. And when they say, Nosotras corremos, that was the name of the campaign. Women run, we run. Um, I could agree or disagree with what they wanted to do, but this was Nike. I just had to follow whatever they wanted me to do. Now I'm in a university, a whole, and it's a state university to make it up. So now it's not only the brand and you pivoting, but regulations and compliance and people that might be a little bit set in their ways. And it is your responsibility to figure out how you can pivot to make it work. It's not an easy thing, but it's worth it. And I come back to the same thing about it being worthwhile because I started with the conversation saying, how do I manage no's? I look and say, is it worth it? It's worth it. And I say, no, I'm out of here. I say, yes, now you have all of me. And when I say all of me, okay, so what it is that I am going to leave as a legacy for the people that I work, for the community that I work for, the university. But then also is who am I becoming? And that's the part that I am 100% responsible for because I am becoming somebody that is able to solve more complex problems, somebody that is more resilient. I am becoming somebody that can see problems 100 miles away and I can shift and pivot. Even if the ship is difficult to steer, the change begins with me. And so that is a daily self actualization. And it is extremely exciting because it's worth it.
100%. This has been great. And as we get close to our closure, a lot of my audience are physicians again that are interested on getting or pivoting into digital health or telemedicine, or they're considering entrepreneurship. And we as we wrap up, I want to hear your thoughts on what advice would you have for anyone that feels stuck in their clinic and feel there's no hope other than see 20 plus patients and being burned out in the process. And but he has this idea that he want to improve healthcare in general. What would you tell to such individual?
I've been there so many times. I've I've pivoted and changed multiple times. I think that it is coming back to that self-awareness, is that self-understanding that I was meant and I've sacrificed a lot more than to just drag myself around the world. We're not going to live forever. That's a given. But we want to feel that the days that we live, either it's one more day or another 20 years or 30 years or whatever it is that I believe in God. So I believe that God assigns the days that if you're in that last breath, you can say, this was worthwhile doing. So if you sit down and say, if this was the last minute, would it be worthwhile me sitting here? And the answer is no, then you need to sit down, be honest with yourself and say, so what is it that what would make me feel that this is something that is worth it? So you make those answers. It may take a few days to put your thoughts into perspective. For me, it starts with saying, what am I afraid of? What am I so afraid of? Oh, I'm afraid that I don't have 10 kids, but I have 10 kids and I need to pay the bills and I can't be on the street. All right. So if I'm afraid of that, do I think that doing this and just dropping them due to stress is going to be good for my 10 kids? Probably not. So maybe I need to carve out 1 hour a week. You could start with 1 hour a week on writing and putting it out there on social media. We all have social media, and start developing a plan for growing your audience. And that is really a good way to start. In fact, I did that for many years. It's a good way to start because there are, in fact, plans in social media for you becoming a creator. And so you could start talking to people and doing podcasts like this one. And the technology is either free or very inexpensive that you could start doing that and start looking and seeing what things you're good with. And what starts maybe like 1 hour talking about what seems to be random, you start realizing what things you actually like. And those spaces actually will help you develop a niche that is a tribe of people that then connect one with the other and with the other. They start telling other people of what you're doing. And the next thing you know, you go from, oh, I'm just running because I want to lose weight and be healthy and manage my stress to I'll finish a marathon to Nike noticing. And the next thing you're doing 7 continents and you're learning so much about yourself. And then you use all that knowledge of managing people and networks to coming into a university and teaching other people how to do the same. The point is that was my journey, but maybe other people's journeys are different. It starts with recognizing that you don't like the path that you're on and or that you can do a lot more with that path. And then having the courage to go ahead and take one little step. I said 1 hour, but if you want to just use 30 minutes of your whole week to start working on that, yes, believe it or not, just recognizing that you don't like where you are or where you're heading is the catalyst for just opening so much more in this world of technology that really has no limit.
Fantastic. It was so grateful to have you, Dr. Enitza George, and happy to have further conversations in the future. Take care.
Thank you.
How can people can reach out to you?
Oh, I can send out my, in fact, I have it right here. The other day, somebody's asked me something and I have my cards and I put it on my phone. So let's see, Miguel, here you go. Now I can send you this. Here's my card. I'm sending it. I just sent it to you through LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. So
Yeah.
we will put it in the description of the episode. So